The Qing Dynasty was the final chapter of imperial China. It ruled from the mid-17th century until 1912, and at its height it governed one of the largest and most populous empires on earth. But the Qing was not simply another Chinese dynasty replacing the one before it. It was founded by Manchus, a people from beyond the Great Wall, who conquered Beijing, inherited the institutions of the Ming, and then built a vast multi-ethnic empire stretching from the Pacific coast deep into Inner Asia. Its story is not just a rise and fall tale. It is the story of conquest, adaptation, expansion, bureaucracy, cultural ambition, foreign pressure, rebellion, reform, and collapse. By the time the last emperor abdicated, China had changed forever. The origins of the Qing lay outside the traditional Chinese heartland. In the early 17th century, Nurhaci, leader of the Jianzhou Jurchens, began unifying Jurchen clans in Manchuria. These groups would later be known as Manchus. Nurhaci had once operated within the orbit of the Ming dynasty, but he eventually rejected Ming authority and founded the later Jin state in 1616. His greatest institutional creation was the Eight Banners system, a military and social organization that grouped Manchu forces into disciplined units. The banners were not just armies. They organized families, land, identity, and loyalty. This gave the rising Manchu state a structure strong enough to challenge a weakening Ming Empire. Nurhaci's son, Hong Taiji, transformed this growing regional power into something more imperial. In 1636, he declared the founding of the Great Qing. This was a crucial political move. The new name signaled that the Manchu rulers were no longer merely frontier warlords or clan leaders. They were claiming universal imperial legitimacy. Hong Taiji also broadened the state's base by incorporating Mongols, Han Chinese defectors, and captured military specialists. The Qing learned from the Ming even before they conquered it. They adopted Chinese-style bureaucracy, used Confucian language when useful, and presented themselves as legitimate rulers to different audiences in different ways. This flexibility would become one of their greatest strengths. The Qing conquest of China happened during a moment of Ming collapse. By the 1640s, the Ming dynasty was struggling with fiscal weakness, corruption, military pressure, and devastating peasant rebellions. In 1644, rebels led by Li Zicheng captured Beijing and the last Ming emperor committed suicide. At the northeastern frontier, the Ming general Wu Sangui faced a choice. Rather than surrender fully to the rebels, he opened the Shanhai Pass to the Qing army. The Manchus marched through the Great Wall, defeated the rebel forces, entered Beijing, and took control of the imperial capital. The Qing then presented themselves not as destroyers of China, but as restorers of order after chaos. Taking Beijing was dramatic, but it did not mean the Qing controlled all of China overnight. For decades, loyalists to the fallen Ming resisted in the south and along the coast. The Qing also had to manage powerful Chinese military governors who had helped them conquer territory. One major challenge was the revolt of the Three Feudatories, when semi-independent regional rulers rebelled against Qing central control. The dynasty only completed its conquest in 1683, when Taiwan and the last major anti-Qing resistance were brought under control. This long struggle mattered because it forced the Qing to become more than a conquering army. It had to become a governing dynasty capable of holding a diverse empire together. The Kangxi Emperor, who ruled from 1661 to 1722, was central to consolidating Qing rule. Though Manchu by origin, he carefully cultivated the image of a Confucian monarch. He sponsored scholarship, respected classical learning, and worked to convince Chinese elites that Qing rule could be legitimate. At the same time, he maintained Manchu military identity and supported Tibetan Buddhism, especially in relations with Inner Asian peoples. This balancing act was a defining feature of Qing politics. The emperor did not rule only as a Chinese son of heaven. He also ruled as a Manchu Khan, a Buddhist patron, and an imperial figure whose authority had to mean different things to different communities. The 18th century became the High Qing era, a period of expansion, prosperity, and imperial confidence. Under Kangxi, Yongzheng, and especially Qianlong, the empire reached enormous size. Qianlong's reign from 1735 to 1796 saw major military campaigns that extended Qing control across Inner Asia. The dynasty's frontiers reached toward the Pamir Mountains in the west, the Mongolian Plateau in the north, the South China Sea in the south, and the Sea of Japan in the east. These conquests helped shape the territorial base of modern China. The Qing was not just ruling China proper. It was governing a large Eurasian empire made up of Manchus, Han Chinese, Mongols, Tibetans, Muslims, and many others. The Qing also used older diplomatic traditions to maintain regional influence. Through a tributary system inherited and adapted from earlier dynasties, neighboring states such as Joseon Korea and Vietnam's Liu dynasty interacted with the Qing court in ritualized ways. These relationships were not identical to modern colonial control, but they reinforced Qing prestige and placed China at the center of an East Asian diplomatic order. Cultural projects also mattered. Qianlong personally supervised Confucian scholarship and imperial compilations, presenting the dynasty as guardian of civilization. Yet behind the grandeur, tension was growing. Expansion was expensive, the population was rising, and the state's administrative capacity was not expanding at the same pace. After Qianlong's death, the Qing faced problems that prosperity had helped create. The population grew toward hundreds of millions, reaching more than 400 million by the 19th century, but tax revenues remained relatively low and often fixed. Local officials had limited resources to govern a vast, crowded country. Corruption spread through parts of the bureaucracy. Economic disruption, land pressure, and social unrest became harder to manage. The very stability of the High Qing had allowed population and commerce to expand, but the state did not modernize its fiscal and administrative systems quickly enough to keep up. The empire looked immense, but its foundations were becoming strained. Foreign pressure exposed Qing weakness in a new way. In the Opium Wars, Britain and later other Western powers forced the Qing government into unequal treaties. These agreements opened treaty ports, granted trading privileges, and gave foreign nationals extraterritorial rights, meaning they could often avoid Chinese legal authority. For the Qing court, this was a humiliating shock. The empire that had seen itself as the center of a regional order now had to deal with industrialized powers using naval force and commercial pressure. This marked the beginning of what later Chinese memory called the Century of Humiliation. The Qing was not only facing internal crisis. It was being forced into a new global system on unfavorable terms. The mid-19th century brought catastrophic rebellions. The Taiping Rebellion, from 1850 to 1864, became one of the deadliest conflicts in human history. It combined religious radicalism, anti-Qing sentiment, social grievance, and civil war on a massive scale. At the same time, uprisings such as the Dungan Revolt devastated Western China. Tens of millions died from war, famine, and disease. The Qing survived, but survival came at a cost. Regional armies and local elites became more important because they had helped suppress rebellion when the central state was too weak. This changed the balance of power inside the empire and revealed how fragile imperial authority had become. In response, Qing officials attempted reform. The Tongji Restoration and the self-strengthening movement introduced foreign military technology, arsenals, shipyards, and new learning. The goal was to preserve the Confucian imperial order while borrowing practical tools from the West. But this limited approach was tested severely. Defeat in the First Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895 was especially shocking because Japan had modernized more successfully. The Qing lost influence over Korea and ceded Taiwan to Japan. The lesson was clear: technical borrowing without deeper institutional reform was not enough. A neighboring Asian state had adapted faster and had defeated the old empire on its own doorstep. The final years of the Qing were marked by desperate reform and revolutionary pressure. The 100 Days Reform in 1898 tried to push fundamental change but was stopped by Empress Dowager Cixi and conservative forces. The Boxer Crisis of 1900 brought foreign invasion and a crushing indemnity after anti-foreign violence spread. After that, the court introduced unprecedented reforms, new schools, legal changes, elections, and the abolition of the imperial examination system. But reform came late, and many people no longer believed the Manchu court could save China. Revolutionaries such as Sun Yat-sen argued for a republic, while constitutional monarchists hoped to transform the empire from within. In 1911, the Wuchang Uprising triggered the Xinhai Revolution. On February 12, 1912, the child Emperor Puyi abdicated. The Qing Dynasty ended, and with it ended China's imperial age. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.